Hello and welcome to another MES executive interview. I'm Adam Dennison, Vice President, Midsize Enterprise Services with the Channel Company. Joining me today is Doug Parker, Senior Vice President, Marketing and Sales with JBS Dev. Doug, welcome. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Adam. Glad to be here.
JBS has been a long-time partner with MES over the past few years. So for anyone in the audience that has been to an MES over the past couple of years, I'm sure you've probably seen Doug and his team there, maybe enjoyed a cocktail at their booth. So thank you so much for being a partner with us, and I hope things are going well for you there.
We always have a great time in MES. Sometimes we're a little ridiculous in some of the things we talk about, but we make it fun. And we've built a lot of great relationships there. So it's been a great event for us.
Perfect to hear. So for those that aren't familiar with JBS Dev and yourself, Doug, why don't you just give us a little bit of background? How long has the company been around? What markets do you serve? You know, what market need did you see when the organization launched? And we have your title, but tell us a little bit more about your role at JBS.
Sure, I guess I'll start there. I've been at JBS for about 20 years. Actually, I'm at my 20-year anniversary right about now. I started when we were a lot smaller. We had about 10 or 15 folks, and the company had been in existence. So that was 2004, 2005. The company had been in existence for about 5 years to that point. And the idea behind the company was the founder, whose name is John Becker, had an idea that he could build a company. He worked for a software consultant. He knew that he could build a company that consisted of really top-notch talent. He considered himself a very good developer, which he was, and he wanted to find other folks like him that he could work with. The mix of resources that he had at his current consultancy were across the board. So he really wanted to work with the best and the brightest. And the other factor was he felt that he could work remotely himself and amongst the other and have the other folks work remotely as well and be successful, which again, that today is not such a foreign concept. 25 years ago, it definitely was.
Yeah, absolutely.
He built that model, and he knew he had a contact that had some need, that worked in the musical retail industry for a small company called Music 123. And they needed some enterprise systems. Again, there was less of a selection of enterprise technology or SaaS technology back in the day. And so you needed to build things. So we were really a custom development shop at that point, and we built them a custom warehouse management system, a POS, and ultimately we built them an e-commerce system, which developed into a broader e-commerce platform that would support multiple musical instrument retailers in that family. And then eventually Guitar Center bought that and put their own platform on there. They had really no online presence at that point. And so that became a big account for us. In a lot of ways, we had other customers at that point, but they were certainly our biggest, and we sort of grew as Guitar Center grew online, and they did grow quickly. And so we fleshed out a decent sized team on that. We were strictly in the Microsoft space, the .NET technology at that time, and had built, amongst that project and other projects. But that's how we started to evolve. And so at that point, it was really a specific technology. It was very much in the retail space. We had a few other customers in the healthcare space and some others, but that was really where it started. So I started as a developer in that time frame. I worked on that e-commerce app, more on the UI UX side at that point, and then I ultimately started to do some development at a later point. And my role consisted of developer for a number of years, and then I went on to be effectively a technical project manager, which we call a delivery lead in our world, and did that for a number of years. Went into management over the entire delivery arm, which is all of our engineers, and then ultimately into sales. And the idea that if you've lived and breathed tech, if you've written code, then it becomes easier for you to speak to other folks. And so that became a natural fit for me. So that's a little bit of background. So the need at that time, again, was strictly in the retail space, strictly around musical instrument retailer. We've broadened quite a bit since then.
Yep. Is John still with the organization?
He is. He is the operating CEO. He's not hands-on keyboard writing code anymore.
Yeah.
A lot of folks that have taken the reins from him in that regard. I think he's okay with that. But yeah, he still exists in the company.
So it's a true tech company that came up through a developer, through technology. At what point did the organization start bringing on quote unquote business people?
It took a while. We were
Mhm.
pretty flat for the first 10 years. We were almost all writing code. John was writing code. I was writing code. Everybody that was involved in the org was writing code. I'd say as we started to branch out from that strictly e-com space, we started to get a little bit more hierarchical, right? The concept of delivery lead, project manager started in 2010-ish, right? Where you had folks that, we had more and more projects and they were falling outside of, the retail, the e-com space. So in order to have them operate correctly, we wanted to, we needed to obviously have a little bit more management structure on top of them. Now, that said, what we wanted to be careful of was introduce people that were strictly project managers. Our technical project managers, delivery leads, have always been very technical. And I think this concept is imbued in the company in general, right? In order to be a successful leader, in order to be able to manage developers and work with developers and understand what you're seeing and help out, you need to be really technical. You need to have been there. Multiple folks in our management, myself included, our president included, our CTO, obviously, our chief architect, even our CFO, were writing code at one point. And so that concept was, again, I think ingrained in those years and is still with the company. So the delivery leads are very, very often very technical, have written code, will write code as part of their current engagements if they can, if there's time permitting, again, depending on the engagement. So that concept remains.
So let's talk about you personally as you grew and moved over into sales. Did you think of it as moving to the dark side? Was that a challenge personally to move over into that role?
I was definitely a little leery on the early part of it. I don't know if I thought of it as the dark side. I just wondered if I could be successful, just given I didn't have 20 years of sales experience. And I think what I've learned is that in sales, your goal is to broker trust, to foster trust early, and being able to speak to something and have lived it. A lot of times I'm talking to CIOs or people that are in scenarios that I have personally been in.
Yeah.
And so being able to talk to that and being sincere and, speaking to that. And then also I think there's a level of sincerity around what we do that we're very transparent about. It's, look, like, if we can help you, we'll help you. If we can't, we'll tell you. There's a lot of things we can do. There's some things that we won't do, or some things that could be accomplished via an off-the-shelf application or another vendor, right? It's our goal to figure out how we can help you, but there's certainly a possibility that we can't. And in that case, I don't like to beat around the bush in that case. And I think that sincerity has helped with, again, brokering that trust so that we can, have conversations and determine whether or not JBS can be helpful.
And I think that's really key in the market that I serve, right? The mid-market, they've got resource constraints. They don't have huge teams. They've got a lot of organizations, vendors or solution providers coming at them, just pushing and pushing, and they can kind of see through that. So I think that's really key. If they know somebody that understands their world, understands their issues and problems, I think that probably certainly helps that dialogue.
I agree. And again, it's probably not well, I know it's not exclusive to the mid-market. There is just a myriad of technology that's being thrown at everyone. We're not even going to talk about what AI has introduced at this point. We will eventually, but there's just a lot. And having someone that you can trust, that can speak to this and that is honest with you, and I think it goes a long way. And again, like you said, the mid-market is, there's just a lot of different things. And again, many times they don't have obviously the budgets that some of these enterprise companies have. So there's constraints there. And so what we try to do is to be very value focused. How can we define that revenue achieving goal that you can gain? How can we gain that efficiency? What can we do in order to drive the value? How can we drive down the risk of security risks? How can we build up systems so they're going to be more robust and more resilient to security and scalability issues, right? So like, where is the value for you and how can we get there quickly? And that is a core tenet of who we are. How can we accomplish value for you? How can we deliver value for you pragmatically and quickly? It's key.
So let's fast forward some now, say the last, 3 to 5 years or so. The company's gone through a lot of growth. You started in retail with one primary customer. You mentioned healthcare. Generally, how many markets do you serve now? What's a typical customer look like for you? Do you have specialties within either verticals or disciplines within specific applications and technology that you focus on?
So I always say that we don't discriminate in terms of who our customers are. Everyone and anyone from whatever industry you're in to whatever type of company you are, whether you're a startup, whether you're federal, whether you're an enterprise organization, whether you're a nonprofit, doesn't matter. Everyone has technology at this point. Everyone has some level of exposure to technology. Not all companies need a mobile app, but all companies need technology systems in order to drive operations. Nobody's running things off of paper anymore, no matter what size company you're in, no matter what industry. So there's common things because of that we think translate across. And so as a result, we have a wide variety of customers, certainly plenty of mid-market customers, but also enterprise customers, nonprofits, federal, ed tech, like all across the board. Anyone that uses technology, we work with. In terms of the key areas that we support, I always say, do you guys have a specialty? Well, yes and no, right? We have specialties in the sense that we have our core competencies. We work with enterprise technologies. We do AI, so both machine learning, generative AI, anything that's coming down the pike. As there's so many things that are coming every day now. We work with it. We love it. We do data, we do business intelligence. We work in the cloud, whether it's bringing applications, migrating applications to a cloud presence or optimizing the cloud presence. We're an AWS partner, we're an Azure, Microsoft partner. We do all of it. We build mobile applications. We've built Petco's mobile app, CarMax's mobile app. And of course, we do custom application development. And again, that's obviously going to vary based on what the need is, right? Like, whether it's a learning management system for a tutoring institution that has a couple hundred locations across the country, whether it's a practice management system for a veterinary clinic, whether it's a train route simulator for a customer that we had recently. It doesn't matter. There's all sorts of shapes and sizes to custom app develop.
So what does the typical start look like? Is it somebody gives you a project, test it out, again, earn that trust, they see the results, they see the ROI, and then they might roll out another project or two? Or do you have folks that'll come on and say, I've got a large scale engagement that we're looking for, and that might be the first time you met them, and obviously there's a cycle to bring them on board and a sales cycle and all that, but is there a typical first time type of a scenario for you?
I'd categorize it into two typical scenarios. One is the organic scenario origination where we've worked with a company, we've done or worked with some folks and have done a really good job, have built several applications or built a presence within there and become a reliable technical company for them. Those folks will migrate to other companies over time, and they'll know that we've delivered for them in the past, and they'll do whatever they can in order to get us working in at their new organization. Again, you face the same problems often, no matter what industry you go to or what company you go to. So knowing a company like us that is senior level resources that have seen it all and can deliver, it's a good resource to have for these folks. So that's been one way and continues to be a route. And again, that's really how we operated largely for most of our existence. I would say the first 20 years of our existence is that sort of word of mouth type organic presence. The second route is pretty much what you outlined, right? So for folks that don't know us or are coming in cold, it is like any organization that you encounter, or any potential organization that you want to work with. You want to understand a little bit more about them. You want to try before you buy as much as possible. And so we try to be really flexible and work with that. We do a lot of smaller POC or assessment type engagements, or figure out what that value is for them. So I talked earlier, right? Like, how can I drive value? How can we drive value for you the quickest? We look to identify that low hanging fruit. We're really good at it, right? Like getting in and saying, you need to do this first, right? You need to carve off this little piece here, or you need to, like, there's this service that's running up in AWS that is 3x what it should be. We can go in there in a handful of hours, we can knock that down by a third. That's going to save you a couple grand a month. That's a perfect type of smaller type engagement. Or,
Yep.
We can build this app for you, but we've built something very similar. We can leverage some of that and throw some of your data in here. Like, we can spin up a separate instance, throw it in here, and just give you a preview of what it looks like. If that seems viable, then we can continue and build something more. So these smaller type engagements where we deliver, they get a feel for what it's like to work with us. And I always tell people that, working with JBS resources, when you have people that are experienced, that have a lot of experience, that move quickly, that want to drive, that are really, like, we push them to drive value, they are hungry to drive value, that becomes sometimes a very, I don't want to say shocking engagement for some people, but it's definitely new versus some of the software companies that they've worked with in the past. And so it happens fast, and that's just who we are, right? And so there's no other way to get it than to be pushing and drive value, and that's really very much what we try to do here.
So how does JBS scale with its customers, right? Say you have a great month, you bring on three mid markets and an enterprise, and obviously you've got resources and it's people that need to be on these projects. How do you work and scale with your customers as you might be bringing on a wave of new customers or new projects?
Well, I think, again, a core tenet of who we are is being flexible with how we engage with folks. We don't necessarily need to, like, a lot of companies will come in and say, all right, well, we need to get 2 resources in there for a minimum of 3 months. We can't go any less than that, or whatever that term is. They have to lock in to sort of manage their risk on that element. We don't work that way. We will do engagements as little as an hour a month, right? Like, what we try to do is be super flexible with whatever the need is, understanding that concept that folks may be, they want to try it out first and see how it goes. And there's these little things that we can do. So focus on those things. But our goal is to be super flexible. A common engagement is, we deliver on something small, whether it's a POC, whether it's an assessment, whether it's a small MVP of an application. That goes great. Again, all along that process, we're very keyed into how is this being received? What is the feedback that you're hearing from your stakeholders? Like, making sure that it gets, broadcast out to those groups, right? Because if that value isn't getting achieved, then we're not likely going to build any farther on that application, right? Like, we're not going to scale anymore. So, and of course, it's important for us to drive as much value as possible. So a common case is, again, we drive something, we deliver something, we build upon that. That grows, the interest grows beyond that. As the interest grows, they feed more and more features and functionality into it. They ask for this or that, right? And we build those things in there. A lot of times what happens is, this happens all the time, including at the most recent MES, is we build something specific for a customer, and it's in one of those sort of core verticals that I talked about earlier, right? Like, so for example, we built a modernized application for one of our customers at MES. And once we deliver that, we'll come later on and they won't even realize that we do mobile applications or that we do AI. And so they'll have to learn. And so we're constantly trying to educate people, even our existing customers, that, hey, like, we're not just a mobile app company. We're not just a BI company. We also do this. And we see, so we encourage, what are your pain points in terms, like, that are outside of this immediate first thing that we've done, and we will expand out that way. And of course, we bring in different resources with different expertise to support that space.
So let's go ahead and jump into ML and Gen AI, because it's been hot for a number of years, and it's not going anywhere. You can't have an interview, a discussion, a conference, an article without having it out there. But there's still a lot of noise out there with it. What do those discussions look like with your customers? Do you guys bring AI to them? Is it involved in your development process, or are you developing AI tools for them, and are they hearing it is it kind of like cloud 15 years ago where their management saying we've got to do this, we got to do this, so they'll come to JBS and say I got to check that box. This is a large question I'm asking you, but what does that look like today versus a few years ago around AI, and what are some of those ways that you're able to help them out and get started or realize ROI off of it and say, hey, now we want to scale this across our enterprise, whatever size that might be.
Yeah. I kind of chuckled at your analogy with what cloud was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Ask somebody how to do this, right? It's similar in that space, right? Like you have people that, hey, my CIO asked me to do something with AI, or my CEO says, hey, we got to do something with this AI, right? And so there's a percentage of interest that comes from that channel, so to speak. And there's some other leads that we have or prospects that we have that are a lot more aware of what they want and are more comfortable in the technology in the space, but don't have the resources to do it or need guidance in some way. Do have the resources, but need guidance or architecture guidance. So again, like we see all shapes and sizes. I told you we have been working with machine learning. Has been around longer than longer than generative AI, I should say. Mm-hmm. We've been doing that since its inception. When you have people that, again, like senior level, they want to be on the forefront of technology. They want to be doing things that are challenging and cool, right? AI fits right into that. So it was a pretty natural fit for us. We have an architecture group. We spun up a sub-architecture group of AI experts. And I would say our common engagement is people, again, that come and say, hey, like, I really need a chatbot. I really need to be able to search these and summarize this, or I need something that can do whatever, a recommendation engine or a generative AI that's going to generate marketing materials based on this model. So what we ended up doing is we were getting so many different things. Some of them were real. Some of them were what we call just kind of tire kicking, right? Like what's out there. What do you guys have? Do you have a product? Which we don't, right, per se. We just build, again, solutions that leverage AI, but are customized to whatever environment that they have. And so we built an application that we called kind of a demo tool that showcased a number of different things that we had either built or for customers of ours, or we had built for pre-sales, like prospect type thing. And we continue to add on to this all the time. And again, that has some of the things that I just mentioned in there, summarizing capabilities, product recommendation capabilities, marketing email generators, image optimizers, right? Like a whole host of different things that AI can be used for. So, I think we actually did a workshop on this for our president, very technical, of course, talked in depth about some of the things that we're doing on this space. Again, it continues to evolve. We're actually doing a talk in a couple of weeks. It's going to be an extension of that, and so many things have come up. A lot of stuff in the healthcare industry has come up in the last year that we're doing with AI. Interestingly enough, just using AI to go through and scan these long, complex patient records and billing records and figure out what's relevant and marry that up. Like those type of solutions we're seeing quite a bit of. But again, it continues to evolve. So it's something that we're going to see. Again, I don't think there's any near-term end to this, right? And the one other topic that I want to touch on that I think you kind of briefly hit was how are we using how are we using AI as a development company? Obviously, AI can code. So I think that what we've encouraged our developers to do is embrace AI, but of course, I think we're in a little bit of a position of advantage here. You have people with many years of experience that know what good code looks like. When you introduce AI, you can, of course, get some great outcomes, but of course, the quality of your outcomes is directly proportionate to how quality your input is. And then the output of that isn't always going to be ideal, isn't always going to be safe, secure, scale, all the things that these developers have, again, 20 years of experience in identifying. So it's wonderful to speed up the slow things about development, the writing test cases, The stupid, where we spent so much time trying to figure out what this bug was that was tripping us up, and the small thing, like you can use AI to key in on that a lot quicker, to log things. Like there's all sorts of possibilities. I personally use it to build up applications. Again, I have development background to know what it's writing and what shouldn't be there and correct it. So that's how we're encouraging our folks to use it. It's something that is going to accelerate your development, but you need to leverage your years of experience to ensure that the output of that code isn't going to be a problem. And in many cases it would be, and I think that's going to continue to be the case for a while.
So, we do our state of the mid-market research. We partner with Gartner on that. Most recent version came out of the field in the March timeframe. We shared it at our April MES spring event. When we asked the question around of mid-market IT leaders, where do AI projects fall down? By far and away, the number one and number two were data quality, and then unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
And so I guess my question to you would be, what's your response to that, and how do you either help your customers through that, and that unrealistic expectation, that's a tough one, because that's the one that could be coming from senior executive management that doesn't quite understand technology as much as they think they do, and they've got a lot of expectations around that. And security is obviously in there as well as far as concerns, but they mark those two as the areas where the things are falling short. How would you respond to that in terms of upfront, helping them understand these two areas, and is there areas that JBS can help there?
Yeah, I mean, so the data quality one, I actually remember the gentleman from Gartner speaking about the data quality, yeah. And it reminded me of the garbage in, garbage out concept, right? Like, yeah, you have a wonderful AI tool that's leveraging, the best and most recent, latest and greatest LLM to do X, Y, or the latest AI technology. If you don't have the data if you don't have your data in order, then it's not going to be able to do much with it, right? And I think that in some ways, we've been surprised with what we've been able to do. I mean, that's not always the case. Mm-hmm. On a smaller scale, I think we've been sort of pleasantly surprised with what we've been able to do with data that isn't in an ideal state. Because I think it's important for companies that want to or realize a need for AI not to feel like, oh, because my house isn't in order from a data perspective, I need to spend 2 years getting everything in order before we can even consider, putting a layer of AI on top of it. I don't think that's the case. We've found that we've worked with a number of companies that have data that isn't in an ideal state, right? But is still able to be worked. We've built solutions that can work around the limitations of those and get value out of it. It may not be perfect in some cases, yep, but we don't always need perfection, right? If we can make something 70% easier, or, again, like have a situation where somebody that's doing something that is, this mindless task that may introduce errors, manual errors, if you can reduce that labor by X%, even if the data isn't perfect, well, I mean, that's a great win.
Quick win. Yeah.
So we take that, right? And so I want companies to think like the data quality isn't there, and so we can't do anything. Yes, the better the data, the better the quality that you're going to get in terms of the AI, but it doesn't have to be perfect. In terms of, so that's how I feel about that's how we feel about the data quality element. The second component, the unrealistic expectations, again, like, it's funny, like we had someone write a very detailed spec for an application, like almost old school requirements document, like 50 pages, like, here's how this thing is going to work. Can you guys build this? Which almost never happens, by the way. This was wonderful. Developers love this sort of thing. But of course, it had a lot of things in there. And, our idea was, okay, well, let's just feed this into AI and see what it spits out. And you can do those things. We didn't actually do it in this case. But what we've seen when we do those things is you still don't get the output that you would hope for, right? Like, you need to be able to interact with things on an iterative basis in order to get the output that you want. And so my point being, like, this is a very detailed spec that got fed in that didn't really produce something that was workable or required a lot of labor in order to get it to what the output was. So when you have someone that is an executive that has an idea and it's half baked, then and they want to throw that into AI and just say, do your magic and then come out with something, that's an unrealistic expectation.
Yep.
And I think it may be obvious, but I don't think that like AI isn't going to perform miracles. You need to be able to work with it. Again, it's going to accelerate things. And I think that's going to be the case for at least the near term. But you need to be able to interact with it in the right way. You need to have the expertise to review it, and you need to realize that it's not going to work miracles.
Well, I think what's key there is the quick wins piece of it too. It's, I've been on at MES for 5 years, and we've gone well beyond let's define AI and all that. It's now where are we at with it? What are we trying? What are we piloting? And where are we starting to see some wins? And I think my own organization's in a similar situation. Our CEO's about 1.5 years in now, and he's now starting to push down like all the way through the organization. Try it, do things with AI. I don't care if you fail. We've got to start moving on this to see where it's at and what it can do for us. So that's part of my job now is to start thinking about in the event space, what can we do to help make your life better and make our audience better in that world.
And one of the things, and that it reminded me when you said that, like one of the things that when you hear that, right, as your technical leaders, you have to worry about, are we doing this in a way that is secure? We don't want people to use AI out of necessity and then take something that may be sensitive and drop it into a public GPT or whatnot, expose that data potentially, and then we have a bigger problem than AI ever would have solved, right? So what we try to do is work within the constraints, the security constraints, the infrastructure constraints, the environments of our customers, as opposed to building solutions that are going to be, over public channels. And again, like, that isn't always possible with, a SaaS AI product or an off-the-shelf product. There's certainly a lot of really cool stuff out there, right? Don't get me wrong. But in some of these cases, you can't ship your data out to these companies comfortably, or an organization that's going to be against their security policies to do so. Whereas building something that is a custom AWS or custom application that may use theoretically AWS or some of those platforms via API, but lives in their infrastructure is perfectly kosher. So we try to do that, like, again, find that value, find the low-hanging fruit, and then build a solution that exists within the constraints of these organizations so that everybody's okay with it, and then allow it to sort of grow from that vantage point.
So we just have a couple minutes left. I want to get to sort of a final couple questions. One is around what's the JBS Dev sort of philosophy around having the discussion around cost versus quality and what that might look like when they're down to 3 and
right.
And you guys are in the game and there's 2 others that might be a little less expensive, or what's how do you have those types of discussions with them?
Sure. So we're really transparent about mostly everything. I would say, especially when it comes to cost, we're going to be, we're upfront and say, look, we're not going to be on the cheaper end of the spectrum. We're senior level, we're US based. So Yep. It's really obvious we're not going to be competitive with some of the folks that are going to be more junior level or offshore. But basically, we have 2 principles in place here. One, because we have senior level people with experience, we're going to do things the right way. We're going to do right by you. The second component of that is that because, again, for the same reasons, because we're senior, because we're encouraging people to do things like leverage AI to accelerate their code development and do whatever we can in order to make that as secure, and not just accelerate, but also build security, build testing inherently in there. We're going to get things done quickly. I think that's the second main factor. So our proposition is essentially, yes, we're going to be more expensive from a rate perspective, but because we're so good at what we do, we're going to be able to get there a lot more quickly. So again, we can outcompete teams that have 10x resources, right? With 1/10 of the resources, or a 1/5 or whatever, a much smaller percentage of those resources, and outperform them. But I think the third factor of that is, Adam, that we are very much, and I talked about this in the beginning, working with us, you're going to have a very collaborative experience. We are constantly going to be looking for the value and trying to understand what that is. Oftentimes, that means that we are getting in the weeds with your business processes, like very intimate with these concepts, as though we worked at your organization, our customer's organization. That happens all the time. And that's good, right? Like, because I think you need to understand as much as you can. I don't think it's a bad thing to understand as much about someone's technology or someone, how their business works, as, you know, their chief business officer, their CIO, whatever, right? As their president, right? Like, I think it's okay to do that. And I think that drives good software development. So again, like, you have to have quality in terms of, and of course,
especially on software development. Yeah.
And of course, we have, from a QA quality standpoint, we're building, like, the level of expertise we encourage. No, we make our developers, again, they do it on their own a lot, but our developers test their own code. They make sure things are good. We're really rigorous on that topic. We also have QA on top of that roll into it, and so we make sure that things are being properly tested. So that has to be part of the process.
Well, kind of what I'm hearing here is, if they make a less expensive option, they could be coming back to you again in 3 months after, and it's, after something that didn't go so well, and they would have been 3 months further down the path if they'd have made that decision up front. And
let me tell you, we call that a rescue project.
Yeah.
Time. That's another key lead channel, is rescue projects.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Absolutely. So we are out of time here, Doug, but are there any other final comments? We're certainly going to see you again coming up in the September timeframe down in San Antonio for MES Fall. Looking forward to that. Anything else we haven't touched on that you want to make sure that our audience knows about?
I think we hit a lot of stuff here. If there's one key area that I would focus on, it's that we're honest, we're direct, we're very good at what we do. And our goal is to figure out what the value is for you. I'll reiterate, if that value isn't there, then we go our separate ways, or we point you in a direction that would be a better fit for you. But if there is opportunity, if it's software related, again, we do a lot of different things. And it doesn't always fit into those 6 core competencies that I outlined, right?
Yeah.
There's things like, we've extended a dynamic instance and created custom fields for that. We supported a POS system, a menu system for a local Northeast brewery with multiple different locations. We've modernized old systems, right? So there's a lot of things that just don't fit into the buckets. It's just an IT pain point. So bring us your IT pain point if you have it. It's worth the discussion. It's 30 minutes of your time to see whether or not we can help push it forward. At worst, you're getting some information, you're getting some knowledge from people that are smart. At best, it's something that we can help out with, and we're happy to do so.
Well, there are no lack of IT pain points out there. So anyone that's listening, if you have some of those, we're happy to get you in touch with Doug and his team. Again, Doug, thanks so much for taking the time today, and certainly thanks for being a great partner with MES. And we will definitely be seeing you in Texas in a few months.
Looking forward to it. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.